Good evening, Dodger fans. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Incline Dodgers podcast. We are presented by TickPick, FanSided, and Underdog Fantasy. This is Kevin Klein speaking. And if you're wondering where the hell were these guys the last few games, well, I have some news for you if you haven't heard. My wife was expecting a child, and she came a little bit early, so I'm recording here from the Cedars-Sinai bathroom live in Beverly Hills. My baby girl was born 2 days ago, right before first pitch on October 16th. So here we are. We're back. Your Los Angeles Dodgers are in the midst of an NLCS where they currently lead 3-2 over the New York Mets. So obviously there were some fun games where the Dodgers dominated. And with timing, of course, we're recording on a night where the Dodgers lost and got pummeled 12-6 by the New York Mets. They go back to Los Angeles where the Dodgers hopefully take care of business. Let me pass it off to Jake Reiner, who I know has a lot of thoughts on this series and probably wants to dive into the latest game.
Yeah, well, first of all, congratulations, Kevin. It's very, very exciting for you. And of course, I know your wife, Leah. We went to high school together. So this is a cool moment for you and your family. So that's awesome. And of course, I know you're obviously putting things in perspective. The Dodgers loss not really weighing heavy on your mind right now. But for me, I did not have a child yesterday, so I'm pretty fired up about this loss that just occurred. I'm waffling between whether to be disappointed / nervous now going back to Los Angeles, and also being of the mind that this is no big deal. The Dodgers have 2 games to win 1, as opposed to the Mets who have to win both games. So if you're taking a look at what position I'd rather be in, obviously you're going to take the Dodgers position every single time. So that let's put that in perspective. But today sucked on a lot of different levels. Jack Flaherty, who was dominant in game 1, was atrocious today. Could not figure it out. From the jump, the 3-run homer from Alonso just really put a bad, sour taste in my mouth on the heels of the Dodgers not scoring in the top of the first when they had second and third and nobody out. Just set a very ominous tone for the rest of the game. I've seen a lot of the chatter online, people getting on Dave Roberts for what took place today. They were mad that he kind of, let's call it what it is. He definitely punted this game. As soon as Jack Flaherty got into trouble, that was it. He was not going to deploy any of his high leverage guys. He sent Honeywell out there to kind of die. He didn't really pitch that great, gave up 4 runs. Jack Flaherty gave up 8 runs. If you give up 12 runs, you're not going to win a lot of those games, even though the Dodgers scored 6. So, Kevin, where do you fall on this sort of punt versus no punt? Should we be blaming Dave Roberts? Should we cut him some slack?
Perfect setup, and I'm going to use this comment from Steve G to kind of set up the tone I'm going to go off with. First off, everyone, thank you for watching. If you're on the live stream right now, please hit that like button. Those likes go a long way for us. So Steve G commenting in the YouTube feed, Flaherty was a clear detriment to the team. I was actually surprised he made it out of the second. Should have pulled him when it was only a 2-run deficit to see if you can make it a game. But no, punt. So that's an interesting perspective, and I've seen a lot of fans kind of have that same mindset and beliefs that Roberts kind of threw in the towel today. I, on the other hand, think Roberts had no choice but to ride out Jack Flaherty. Pitchers give up 3-run home runs all the time in the first inning, and that's never a cause for concern to pull a pitcher the moment he gets into any trouble. The issue with the Dodgers right now is they don't have the luxury to really go to the bullpen every game the minute one of their starters get into trouble. So with Jack Flaherty, he's coming off a performance where he just threw 7 shutout innings. He was dominant versus today where the walks were just out of control. He continued to give a bunch of free passes. The velocity downtick was kind of a concern as well. He was throwing 93, 94 in the last couple games of the playoffs. Tonight, he was sitting mostly at 91, which was kind of a cause for concern. I don't know if it was fatigue. I know Dave Roberts cited he was under the weather, but that seems kind of like a pacifist excuse to say he was shitty, because I remember earlier in the season when Tyler Glasnow got shelled, he used the same reason for why Glasnow might have pitched bad, the quotes, under the weather. But what are we going to do if you pull Jack Flaherty in the second inning? Are you really going to depend on your bullpen to go 8 innings for you after they just had a really short leash on Yamamoto yesterday, where Evan Phillips had to pitch a bulk, Blake Trinan had to pitch. A lot of these guys had to pitch yesterday, and on a back-to-back, I don't know if we had the luxury to go 8 innings from the bullpen to kind of ride it out and hope that we don't give up any more runs. So I think going with Flaherty up through the third was fine. I know at a certain point, I'm just going to refresh my memory. When Marte doubled to left, that scored Winker and Alonso. That's probably right there where I would have pulled Flaherty. Not before any of that, not the minute a couple base runners got on, but once Marte hit that double, I think that's where I probably would have pulled the plug on Jack Flaherty.
Yeah, I could see that. That definitely is a good place where you could have pulled him. And again, I'm with you. The Dodgers don't have the luxury of going to their bullpen as often as they would like to. The problem is that you got to view the bullpen kind of like another starting pitcher. The Dodgers do not have a plethora of starting pitching, as we knew. We knew that going into the playoffs. It was a struggle against San Diego. And we knew that the offense was going to take them as far as the Dodgers will go. It'll be up to the offense to kind of carry the load. And so far this postseason, that has been the recipe. The offense has put up a ton of runs every single game, especially in this series. So you figure that at any given moment, they could come back in a game, and they almost kind of did in this one. I mean, they did get within 4 runs. It was 10-6 at one point. So that's sort of the other side of the coin, where if you kind of let your starting pitcher die out there and give up 8 runs, then you kind of are throwing in the towel, so to speak, and not really giving your offense a chance to come back. Still early in that game, still a heavy lift, right, for the offense, but still you figure with this offense against this bad Mets pitching staff, anything's possible. That's kind of the other side of this coin, is like, you kind of don't want this series to go longer than you need to. And to end it in Citi Field in a game 5 would have been ideal. Obviously, we all get that. But going into Citi Field, if you'd have told me that the Dodgers would win 2 out of 3 there and be going back to LA, I would have been fine with that. But with the way the Dodgers were rolling the first 2 games at Citi Field, you're like, oh, they're going to just boat race the Mets to the finish line. They've got their best starting pitcher in there. This is going to be an easy coasting ride, but it just wasn't. Here's the other moment that you could have done. Roberts could have done something, right? Is the Dodgers are down 10-6, right? Mookie Betts hits the home run. Then you go into the bottom of the 6th. Honeywell is still out there. And that to me is kind of where you could have gone to your bullpen, because you're already in the 6th, right? You didn't use Kopech. You didn't use Banda yesterday. I'm talking about the day before in game 4. You didn't use these guys. You could have gone to some better leverage pitchers in that spot, because you only need 4 runs, right? So to me, I felt like that was kind of another moment where I wish that Roberts was just a tad bit more aggressive in giving his team more of a shot to win. You throw out Honeywell, you kind of cast him out there. He gives up 4 runs. He did eat up a lot of innings, which you needed. But again, it's like, you get your team within 4 runs with this lineup in the 6th. I trust this team to come back in that moment. And that, to me, was where we kind of lost this game.
Yeah, you mentioned a point that I agree with. Going into the New York Citi Field turn of the series, 2 out of 3 is a success. Asking for 3 in a row is just getting spoiled. And at the end of the day, the Dodgers only ended up using 3 pitchers because Flaherty, Honeywell, and Banda got 1 out. So going into game 6, they get a day off and the bullpen will be fresh. So they basically all have 2 to 3 days off. And so I think the mindset here is Dave Roberts and the organization have confidence in this team that they're not going to blow a 3-1 series lead. They're going to take care of business in game 6. And you've got a fresh bullpen, however you want to mix and match it. And I'm pretty sure they're going to be smart enough this time not to go to Landon Knack early on and hope that in hopes that he doesn't give up a grand slam this go around. But I want to talk about where this game actually went wrong. And it went wrong in the first inning. And it was not with Flaherty pitching, but it was with the Dodgers offense. You have the opportunity right there with Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani. I believe they were at second and third. Nobody out. Teoscar Hernandez coming up to the plate. Blew it instantly. What is he, 0 for 22, 0 for 23 in this series? Not going to call him catastrophic hurting this team because he was huge in the NLDS. But in this series, he's been bad. He's been a disappointment. Freddie Freeman, who I'm sure we'll talk about as well, and what the outcome might be for him because he went 0 for 5. Obviously, the ankle is killing him. He didn't come through, and so that set up Tommy Edman for a strikeout. But I think right there, when the Dodgers couldn't get some runs on the board, that was the momentum shift right there. And I think momentum swings can happen early on in the first inning because when Pete Alonso got that slider from Jack Flaherty, it wasn't even a pitch in the zone. He was able to golf it out of the bottom underneath the strike zone over the center field wall for a 3-run home run. So it wasn't like it was a bad pitch from Flaherty, but because the Dodgers offense couldn't capitalize in the first, that put a lot of pressure on Flaherty and we just couldn't bounce back.
Yeah, ominous things happen in the playoffs where you kind of know instantly at the moment that this was going to be a big moment. And I agree with you. That first inning, they had David Peterson on the ropes, second and third, nobody out, some big bats coming up, and Teoscar Hernandez couldn't do anything. Freddie Freeman couldn't do anything. And then Edman also just did not come through. So that to me was what was a pretty rough start to the game. Given how fast things can move in a postseason game in terms of emotion, in terms of shifts of momentum. We saw that in the Padres series when in one of the games, I believe in San Diego, whichever game happened where in the second inning they had a million errors and Buehler was screwed. I think that was the first game in San Diego. It was in that second inning in Game 3 of the NLDS where you had that bad inning and you can't really recover from that. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a really unfortunate game. Teoscar Hernandez, I think we should talk about him a little bit. It has been a rough go. You mentioned the 0 for 22, 23 or whatever it is. Just a shell of the player that we saw in the NLDS. I fully expect him to be a guy that we can count on when the going gets tough, so to speak. So I'm not ready to count him out yet. But I also think that Freddie Freeman, if we could talk about him for a second, because reports are that it looks like he might not be in the lineup for Game 6. And to be quite frank, I'm okay with that because he really hasn't been swinging a good bat. And Dave Roberts kind of feels that his ankle is affecting his ability to hit. And with a guy like that in the middle of this lineup, I just don't think that it's worth potentially making his ankle worse or re-injuring it in some way. And also the fact that he's just not hitting. So getting him out of the game, at least for Game 6, I think is the right move at this point.
I unfortunately agree. Even though Chris Taylor hasn't done much more to even warrant himself in the Dodgers lineup, that's probably what's going to be the outcome is you'll see Chris Taylor and Andy Pages in the lineup. And Andy Pages was awesome today. 2 home runs. He didn't quit. This is a bat we talked about. Get him in there against left-handed pitching. He can mash. He actually dominated right-handed pitching today. So I liked what I saw from Andy Pages. That's an exciting ad. Hopefully he can carry momentum over. But yeah, you got to put Freddie Freeman on the bench in hopes that he can be healthier for the World Series because he's just been abysmal in this series. Will Smith's another one that I'm just surprised how much he's been struggling in this entire series. Like the stats of just all these guys right now, it's kind of disappointing. What is Will Smith hitting right now? Is he hitting like 143 this entire postseason? It's been a rough go for Will Smith. Yeah, 143 with a 497 OPS. That is just a rough ride. He was dropped to 8th today in the Dodgers lineup. Something I don't think I've seen since he was a rookie. So confidence is lost in Will Smith. The guys that have stepped up, Ohtani, Betts, Muncy, Edman, Kike, and then Pages today. Or later on, we'll talk about who we think should be the NLCS MVP. But there's a number of bats that have stepped up. But the Freddies, the Teoscars, and the Will Smiths and Gavin Lux have sticked out like a sore thumb of not putting any production so far.
Yeah, no, it's been a rough series for those guys. Luckily, like you said, the rest of the guys have stepped up. Shohei is on fire. Mookie Betts has caught fire, which I love. Here's the thing is that, the Dodgers go back to Dodger Stadium. They've got 2 games to win 1. Game 6 is going to be tough because you figure they're going to go Sean Manaea, and the Dodgers did not see him well at all in Game 2. That was a rough ride. Watching Manaea kind of carve us up. What you gotta kind of hope for is, can the bullpen keep the game where it is, until they're able to get Manaea out of the game? So what does that mean? 3 runs or less to be able to give this Dodgers offense a chance, because I don't believe in this Mets bullpen. I think they're very gettable outside of Edwin Diaz. I'm not really afraid of anybody else coming out of that pen. I love when they go to Jose Butto. That guy stinks. So I think that if they can figure out a way, which they've been doing all series, I mean, we've also seen the Dodgers take like a record number of walks in this series. They're on base a lot. They're running up the pitch count. That's obviously going to be the game plan for Game 6. Get that pitch count up, get Manaea out of the game, and keep the deficit close. That's how you win Game 6. And I think that it's going to be all hands on deck. The bullpen is fully rested, like we mentioned. So the Dodgers, I hope that they play and manage this game as if it is an elimination game. Because if you lose Game 6, then it starts to get really scary, because Game 7, as you know, anything can fucking happen. It's just one game and anything can happen. And so you really don't want to be in that position. Plus, if they lose Game 6, the Mets have all the momentum. They've just won 2 in a row, and they could definitely win a third and steal one off you. And especially this Mets team, who all season long, especially down the stretch and in the playoffs, have rebounded. They, as soon as they're on their last breath, that's when they're the scariest. So the Dodgers need to put this team away in Game 6. I really, really do not want to see a Game 7.
100%. They got to treat Game 6 like it's a Game 7. Roberts has to be super aggressive, short leashes. Offense has to be productive outs. It's going to be a bullpen game, I imagine. I think everyone's available. I don't know if we'd be crazy enough to even use Yamamoto out of the bullpen. I don't think they'd go that crazy, but relief pitching wise, you've got 9-10 guys you can trust, and we should be good. I think we have the leg up on the Mets as well, because they really had to use their bullpen today. Stanek got 7 outs. Edwin Diaz had to get 6 outs. Was the other guy? Sorry, I'm on a little sleep here. Reese Garrett, they had to use. He had to throw 31 pitches. So all these guys were worked. The Mets don't have a deep bullpen. We might see Kodai Senga come in relief for Sean Manaea if the Dodgers are able to get to him. And I think seeing Sean Manaea a second time in this series should be pretty beneficial for the Dodgers, because they get a second look at him. These guys will be more familiar with his pitch mix. So we just got to play our game, and we should be fine. The other thing that I wanted to talk about before kind of moving on to maybe a different game or a different topic. So, one of the reasons that I feel like Roberts has to die with some of these pitchers sometimes, like Jack Flaherty and Landon Knack in Game 2, is we just don't have the depth in the bullpen. We don't have the emergency relievers like we had in years past, where we can't count on a Julio Urias or peak Clayton Kershaw in 2016 to come out of the pen. Like the injuries of Gavin Stone, River Ryan, Alex Vesia, those are some huge arms that you just don't have as emergency guys. We lost Emmett Sheehan before the season began. Tyler Glasnow's obviously on the injured list. And then the other quantifying factor is, don't forget, Bobby Miller forgetting how to pitch, I think, has kind of hurt this team as well. Even if Bobby Miller could have been a resource out of the bullpen, that would have allowed someone like Dave to kind of have shorter leashes on a Flaherty or Landon Knack. But because we don't have these arms that we should have, it's really kind of limited Roberts in terms of his managing ability and the leashes he can provide.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you mention Tony Gonsolin?
I did not, only because I didn't expect him to pitch this year.
Right, but I'm saying that's another guy, right? That you just don't have at your disposal. It's just it's very frustrating. It's something that we could see kind of a mile away, a month out, really, from the playoffs, that we were going to be struggling for starting pitching. And, the Dodgers could end up winning this series and winning the World Series. But you look back and you think this was not the ideal formula to go into a playoffs with like very little starting pitching. And, as good as Jack Flaherty was in game 1, 2 of his 3 starts in the postseason have not been good. Yamamoto has not been good and has been good. Walker Buehler was shaky and has been good. So it's the trust level with the starters that they do have isn't very high at this point. It's sort of, you kind of don't know what you're going to get once they step on the mound. And so, yeah, you got to run a bullpen game out there. But what's the problem with that? You never know if it's going to be that guy's worst day of his life. So you keep running pitchers out there, giving them an opportunity to pitch, and they have to do their job. And that's a very scary position to be in, despite the fact that the Dodgers have a terrific bullpen, and I think the best bullpen in the playoffs. The other weird thing, though, that you mentioned Edwin Diaz was in this game, and I kind of was shocked because I didn't watch the end of this game. I kind of turned it off early because it was just brutal. But I am shocked that he pitched in this game. Do you realize that when Edwin Diaz came into the game in the 8th inning, the Mets were up 11-6? They're up by 5 runs, and they're bringing him in, and he's pitched 2 innings? They actually scored another run in the bottom of the inning to make it 12-6, and they kept him out there. That's crazy. But that's the thing. It's like the Mets know that they don't have anything else. They're not going to risk putting a scrub out there against this Dodgers lineup that can come back at a moment's notice. And the Dodgers are kind of playing this series very conservatively because they know that their starting pitching is so thin that they have to rely on their good bullpen. The Mets kind of just have to throw everything out there and see what sticks, including the kitchen sink.
Yep, right there with you. That's really all I have to add for this game. It was a stinker. Andy Pott has looked good, but the pitching was atrocious. Hopefully Jack Flaherty can recover and bounce back if the Dodgers are to make the World Series. Want to give everyone watching right now an opportunity to ask questions or any comments that you'd like us to read in the chat. So feel free to drop those questions in right now, and we'll get to anything you guys want to talk about. How about the fun games? How about this Dodgers offense through the 4 games? I believe up until that point, it was the best run differential in an NLCS in Dodgers franchise history. Everybody was doing the number other than those few guys we talked about. Mookie Betts has been going off home run after home run. Shohei Ohtani getting some big home runs in there. Max Muncy with 12 consecutive plate appearances where he reached at least a base. Tommy Edman was hitting over 400 at one point. A number of these guys were just clicking, and this is just really awesome to see that the Dodgers offense has looked pretty locked in for the most part. Even in today's loss, they scored 6 runs, which is a win almost every time out.
Yeah, this offense has carried this team, just like the bullpen has carried this team. But the Dodgers offense, I mean, there's been so many blowouts in these playoffs, including in the NLDS. I've been so impressed with what I've seen from the Dodgers offensively, especially given the past couple of postseasons where they haven't shown up at all. This was a year that they really did show up. Obviously, the difference, I think the big difference is the Shohei Ohtani factor. Some majestic home runs we've seen from him in the last couple of games, in games 3 and 4. Unbelievable home runs from the greatest player in the game. No, you can't say enough about this offense. Also, Tommy Edman too, what a pickup he's been. The guy's been mashing. And if the Dodgers end up closing this series out, I think he's got to be in high consideration for NLCS MVP.
With this game 6 hopefully being the deciding game for the Dodgers, I think there's at least 4 or 5 Dodgers right now in the mix for that NLCS MVP. They might do co-MVPs because there's been a number of guys that have played well. I think Ohtani's in the mix. Mookie Betts is in the mix. Tommy Edman has to be in the mix, and Max Muncy, and maybe Kike Hernandez. And I think whoever has the biggest impact in Game 6 of those guys is going to walk home, at least with his share of the NLCS MVP. I mean, what Tommy Edman's been doing for the Dodgers, he's up to hitting 333 in the postseason. In this particular round, I don't have the stats in front of me, but he's been on base. He had a 3 or 4 hit game in one of these games against the Mets. This dude's been a machine, and the fact that he is a lock defensively, he's been clean every time the ball's hit his way at the shortstop position. That's comforting to have, and he can play center field. Then you've got Kike Hernandez, who hit the massive home run just the other night. And then Max Muncy, another guy hitting home runs, getting on base. And then, of course, Mookie Betts. So a lot of guys stepping up in this series. So I feel like we have the edge against the Mets offensively. For the most part, it's just been Pete Alonso and a little bit of Vientos and Lindor. But we can contain these guys. I'm very confident in it.
I am too. And I think the Dodgers know what's at stake here, obviously. I mean, we all know what's at stake here. But what I mean by that is I feel like this Game 6 is going to be treated like an elimination game, as it should be. I really hope so. Dave Roberts has a tendency to manage for tomorrow instead of today. And I hope that on Sunday he manages for that day as if there is no tomorrow. That has to be the mentality. And I'm hoping to see that, because Dave has had a pretty damn good postseason so far. He's pulled all the right levers. The only times where we've really gotten on him has been the times where he just kind of goes, fuck it. I'm not going to put a stop to the bleeding at all. I'm not going to pull my starter when I need to, or use any of my high leverage guys if we're behind. I really would like to see some more aggressive managing from him in this game. And if guys start to get in trouble, we need guys warming up. I think that's the big thing too. I think, Kevin, is that what I don't like is if you have a reliever go multiple innings, you need to have guys up in the second or third innings that they go out there, because the first sign of trouble, you got to be able to pull them, and you got to be able to have someone warm and ready to go in. And I just feel like we haven't really been doing that much of that in this series, and I'd like to see that going forward.
I'm going to get to this comment by Moose 1032.
Oh, me too. I actually was going to save this rant for the end, but we can do it now.
Let's take a quick break right now. Underdog Fantasy, so kind enough to support the Incline Dodgers podcast throughout this postseason journey. I've been getting in on some Underdog Fantasy every day. A couple of my pick'em entries hit. I've been riding the Mookie. I've been riding the Shohei Ohtani hot streak. Been getting a little bit of Max Muncy in there. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, the strikeouts yesterday, all the props hitting. I loved everything matchup-wise against Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And so if you feel like you have an edge on Sean Manaea, if you want to follow my lead, I think we're going to pummel him. So pick all the hires in terms of, stats going against Sean Manaea. And Underdog is super easy to play. It's even easier to get started. Go to their easy-to-use mobile app or go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with the promo code INCLINE, and Underdog will give you a mystery special pick to use on your first pick'em entry, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code INCLINE, to claim your new customer special of a mystery player pick and your deposit offer. Must be 18 or older, 19 or older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 and older in Colorado for some games, 21 and older in Massachusetts, Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpagambling.org. Arizona, you can call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 HOPEline at 1-877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY. So the comment from Moose 1032. One second. Bill Plaschke is a jinx. Can we trade him? Jake, I will let you take the lead.
No, the answer to your question, Moose, no, we can't trade him, unfortunately. I wish he would honestly retire, because he does this shit all the time. And I know it's kind of fun to make fun of him and whatever. we know the entirety of the wins and losses. Let me just start this. That English sentence was terrible. We know that the players are responsible for wins and losses, right? And not columnists. I just want to throw that out there to start. But the first thing I want to say, because Plaschke, after game 4, the Dodgers just pounded the Mets. He writes a column that says, "Done deal. Dodgers are a lock to finish off Mets and advance to the World Series." What are you doing, bro? Like, what are you doing? You're counting your chickens before they hatch. And he does this all the fucking time. Every year he writes some dumb column about the Dodgers winning the World Series. They have it. They have the team now, and they get swept in the first round or whatever the case is. It's maddening, this guy. It's maddening that he does this, and it always happens. Also, I'm watching you too, David Vassay, because he also said that this was a lock, that Flaherty was going to go out there and shove, and the Dodgers were going to wrap it up in Queens and be waiting for whoever wins the Yankees-Guardians series in the World Series. I'm watching you guys. If you guys lose us this series, that you are dead to me. Dead to me. Because we know as Dodgers fans that we live and die by this team. We know that at any given moment, it could be taken away from us, which is why I'm not sitting here being like, oh, don't worry about it. We got this. We're going back home for game 6. And if we don't win game 6, we got game 7. No, we've been through so much goddamn trauma in our lives that we haven't won a full season World Series since 1988. We're on the precipice of going back to the Fall Classic, first time since 2020. We know what can happen here. Don't do this to us. Oh, Bill Plaschke, I'm so pissed at you.
If you look up the definition of casual in a dictionary, it takes up a whole page of Bill Plaschke's selfie or photo shoot, whatever. You'll see a giant face of Bill Plaschke because this guy is nothing but a motherfucking casual. He doesn't follow the Dodgers all season long. He bashes the team during the regular season, and then the moment they make the playoffs, he pulls this shit every single year, guaranteeing, locking in, even though he doesn't know half the players on the Dodgers, saying they're going to win the World Series. And he does it once again, saying that this series is a lock against the Mets, even though the series is far from over. He did this shit against our Rams a few years ago in the Super Bowl when he said it was a done deal. They were going to beat the New England Patriots. Then they put up a whopping 3 points. This guy doesn't even like LA sports. He's a casual. If you remember his writing for years, all he did was bash Kobe Bryant, and then the minute Kobe Bryant passes, he puts an article out there making it about himself and his relationship with Kobe Bryant. He bashes the Lakers, but then when they're relevant, he pretends he's a fan. He bashes the Dodgers. Then when they're relevant, he pretends they're going to win the World Series. He doesn't even know who's on the Rams. Then he says they're going to win the Super Bowl. He's a shitty writer. There's a reason I don't subscribe to the LA Times. It starts with Bill Plaschke and Dylan Hernandez. And maybe when those two are gone, I'll be more interested in following the LA Times more routinely. But my goodness, shut up, Bill Plaschke. Nobody wants to read your garbage. Go home, go to the old folks' home, and retire already.
Yeah, it's maddening to me. It's just maddening to me. Why would you do that? The bulletin board material that we generate as a Dodgers fan base is enough to make your head explode. But when it's a columnist or a sports writer making a declaration, it's even worse than that because their supposed emotions are out of it. They're doing their job. They're making a calculated analysis based on their experience as a sports writer. To me, it's just so it's so maddening to me.
Dennis Gonzalez question: who should the opener on Sunday be for the Dodgers? So if we were the managers right now, how would you script this game to get 27 outs? I could go first, or you could go out. You could go first. Let me know what your thoughts are.
Well, Brazier has worked before. He worked against the Padres, but he didn't necessarily work against the Mets, albeit he only gave up 1 run. It was a solo shot to Lindor. So they're probably not going to go with Ryan Brazier to start. I would go maybe with someone like a. I don't know. I mean, Banda you could probably start with, or I was trying to think like if you wanted to go, with a Kopech Trinan or maybe maybe even a Daniel Hudson. I don't know if he's even available. But you could start with him or Phillips. I mean, I don't know if you want to go with one of your best guys to start, or you just ride it out with Brazier and see what happens. I think the number one thing is that they should stay away from Landon Knack. I really did not. He did not instill any confidence in me. But the thing is that what I've realized with Dave Roberts is that he will ignore past experience and he'll just believe in his guys. And so don't be surprised to see Landon Knack out there if that is the case, because he did the same thing with Yamamoto. Now, Yamamoto's a little different. They're paying him $325 million. So I understand going back to him, but based on his outing against San Diego, bringing him back to pitch another game was a dicey move. So that's the one arm I would stay away from is Landon Knack. Who would you start?
It's easier said than done, but in my mind, I'm hoping you go Ryan Brazier. He gets 4 outs with Alonso being the 4th out. Turn the ball over to Anthony Banda. He gets 4 outs. I'll be more conservative. So hopefully he gets 4 outs. That's 8 outs. Then I think you got to go with Michael Kopech again in the 3rd inning. And even though he's batting 9th, Francisco Alvarez killed us today. So I want Kopech in against Alvarez. Then he goes against the top of the order. Hopefully he gets 4 outs. So that's 12 outs. So we need 15 more outs remaining. Then I think you got to kind of be creative here. Daniel Hudson probably has to face the middle of the Mets order. He's pitching in the 4th or the 5th. He gets 3 outs. So now we've got 15. We've got 15 outs recorded. We need 12 more. So at some point you mix and match. You get Evan Phillips in there. You get Blake Trinan in there. And you get who am I blanking on? So hopefully at that point the Dodgers have a little bit of a lead, and then you pass the ball off to hopefully someone like Casparius or Henriquez again. I'm hoping the Dodgers at this point don't need a save situation, but if they do, that's where it's going to get really dicey, and that's where the loss of Alex Vesia really hurts, because I don't know what other high leverage relievers we really have that we could feel good about.
Yeah, so I'm looking at what the Dodgers did against the Padres in Game 4. That was the bullpen game that they won 8-0. And it kind of follows a similar script that we just mentioned. So they went with Ryan Brazier for an inning and a third. Then they went with Banda for 2/3 of an inning. Then they went with Kopech for an inning. And then this is what you're talking about, Kevin. Alex Vesia, which we don't have. He pitched an inning and 2/3. Then they went to Phillips, Hudson, and then Knack came in for the 9th. But the Dodgers were up 8-0 at that point. So you kind of felt okay about that. So yeah, that's going to be tough without Landon Knack being effective. That's going to be tough to string together that many pitchers.
Yeah, it's going to be really creative. So I think that's why it's imperative for the Dodgers offense to show up. Because I don't think we're going to feel very good if it's a 1 or 2 run game. They're going to have to burn some of their high leverage guys at the very beginning of this game against the top of the order. Because you'll probably see Brazier, then you'll probably see Kopech. They're going to want to have Phillips lined up and Trinan lined up. That would be the 4 pitchers that you get to try to get Lindor, Vientos, Nimmo, or Alonso out. And then you just hope the bridge through the other parts of the orders, those guys can step up. So it's gonna be a very interesting game, and I don't know if Roberts has any wild cards in the mix. I don't foresee him using Walker Buehler out of the bullpen, but Walker Buehler pitched great in his start. Little messy, but the fact that he had the bases loaded and was able to get out of it looked like vintage Walker Buehler. I've been loving what he's been doing for the Dodgers this postseason, and I loved up to this point what Flaherty had been doing for the Dodgers this postseason. But they really only have 3 starters, and they've made it to this point, and so far it's worked. You just have to stick to the formula, trust the plan, and we don't need Dave Roberts to pull one of his classic Roberts blunders.
Here's my question though, and this is my big worry, is that if the bullpen game goes off the rails, does Dave Roberts then stay away from his high leverage guys to try and keep it close, knowing that there's a game 7 behind it? I just have a big worry that if the bullpen plan kind of goes awry, which we've seen it go awry, and once it does, Roberts kind of abandons the game and kind of just focuses on the next game as opposed to trying to win this one. That's the only thing that I'm worried about, is that if it doesn't work, we might be fucked. And I just don't feel like saving guys for a game 7, even though you have the luxury of doing that, is necessarily the smart move in this one.
Yeah, we can't punt this game. We can't go to a game 7. Everyone's going to be used tomorrow. If you have a game 7, no one will be fresh. It's just setting up disaster. We're continuing to take questions, and another question coming from Rebecca Michelle David. Could Kasparius start? Just a thought.
He could certainly start. The only problem is that he's an untested guy. Same with, Enriquez. Untested guys, putting them in the first inning against the Mets' best hitters it could work. It could work just fine. But if it doesn't, then you're going to get a lot of criticism and a lot of question marks as to why would you go with someone with so little experience against the best part of the Mets order in the top of the first. That just might not be what they want to do.
Yeah, I would not go with Kasparius unless it's a mop-up role. Like Jake said, he's not tested, and I don't really trust him against the top of the Mets lineup. This team's in the NLCS for a reason. They're a hot offense, and the Dodgers pitching has just done a good job up until today to really contain them. And I don't want Kasparius to kind of be another matchbox to get their offense lit up and on fire. So hopefully they go with Frazier or Hudson and contain them right away. Get us clean first. Set it up for the Dodgers offense to hopefully get a run or 2 on the board so the crowd can get into it, and then you ride that tailwind.
Like I said before, the game plan is going to be, let's run up Manaea's pitch count as much as humanly possible. See if we can scratch runs off of him. But at the very least, try and knock him out of the ball game as early as possible. And in that time, make sure that this game is within reach. You don't want this game to get out of hand and let Manaea get confidence and then start carving us up. And then we get a repeat of what happened in game 2. You just cannot let that happen. So it's really, over the first 4 innings is very crucial for this Dodgers pitching staff, because that's where the Mets are going to decide whether or not they are going to stick with Manaea long-term or get him out of there and turn it over to the bullpen. Those first 4 innings are going to be so huge.
No doubt about it. And we'll see what happens. I think ultimately this will come down to runners in scoring position. Today, Dodgers were 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position. Mets were 5 for 19. So the fact that the Mets had 19 runners in scoring position today, that's just kind of a red flag there right now from the Dodgers pitching.
Well, the walks killed us. Flaherty just could not find the zone. Are you concerned about his velocity? It was a few ticks down today.
I think he'll bounce back. I don't know what happened. Maybe it's just continuing to pitch on 4 days rest caught up to him today, or the Mets just figured out his game plan. But yeah, throwing 91 miles per hour when you'd been throwing 93, 94, definitely a cause for concern. I don't know if I buy that. The illness is what really ticked down his velocity. But if they win if they win on Sunday, you get enough rest, because I believe the World Series wouldn't start till the 25th now of October. So that's like 3 or 4 days rest. Plus you get the extra 2 days rest for Flaherty. So he should be rested. I think he'd be ready to go for game 2, I'm guessing. That beautifully would set the table. Yamamoto game 1. Flaherty game 2, Buehler game 3, hopefully, and then you can just do a bullpen game 4, I guess. Go from there.
Yeah, it's again, in terms of what position you want to be in, the Dodgers position is the enviable one, not the Mets. You have 2 games at home. You got to win one of them. I just pray to God that it is game 6 and it does not go to a game 7, because I feel like the Dodgers are in a really good position. Plus, the Yankees just won, so they could advance as early as tomorrow and wrap that series up. So they're going to, I think the Yankees will take care of business. I just hope the Dodgers take care of their side of the street and we get a Yankees Dodgers World Series, which is something that I've always wanted to see as a fan.
It would be electric. All right. Well, normally I'm a little more upbeat with my energy, but the whole new dad thing is definitely taking a toll on me. So we'll hang out for a few more minutes. Want to make sure we get any more questions in for you guys. I don't know if you're having the same issue, but I wish Baseball Reference would update their NLCS stats like the same day instead of waiting to the next day, because I can't pull up anyone's stats right now of what they're doing in the NLCS. It's kind of ticking me off.
Well, MLB does a good job of that.
I can see the overall, but I'm trying to break it down by series.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, we know who's doing well and who isn't doing well. We just don't have the numbers to back it up. Teoscar Hernandez has been rough. But look, I mean, the Dodgers were able to win game 4 without Freddie Freeman. I mean, this offense has enough firepower to put up enough runs to win. So even if Freddie Freeman's going to be down for game 6, it's not the end of the world. And you could argue that his presence in the lineup is hurting us because he's not hitting for power. Yes, he is hitting a little bit. He's getting hits here and there, but when he gets on base, he's a liability. And it's just, it's tough. It's tough when he's a middle of the order bat.
Yeah, if I think you got to move Freddie Freeman down in the lineup at this point if he were to start for the Dodgers. I think you got to go Ohtani, Betts, and then maybe Muncy hitting third. I don't even know. It'd be crazy if Kike Hernandez is your cleanup hitter. Maybe Edman, who's been hitting cleanup. But you got to. It's just different than what we were accustomed to in the regular season. I think you got to put your hot guys at the top, move the cold guys, including Teoscar, lower in the lineup, and then reevaluate come World Series, assuming we get there. Because there's just been a few situations now where we have runners in scoring position, and those cold guys are not coming through. So we'll see what the adjustments are for Game 6, but I expect Dave Roberts to continue to ride the hot bats and lower down in the lineup the colder bats. Probably because Sean Manaea is a lefty. You won't see Gavin Lux in the lineup for, a third straight consecutive game? So interesting stuff right there.
I think I expect Teoscar to be right back in the middle of that lineup. I don't think that they're going to move him. He's kind of an immovable player because he's an established veteran who's been he's a big run producer for us, and it's against the lefty. So I do expect him to be kind of right where we've seen him in the 4th spot or even the 3rd spot. If they're going to move him down at all, it'll be just a 5th, I would assume. But I wouldn't mind seeing Tommy Edman move up, maybe bat him 3rd or bat Kike 3rd. I think those guys with the bat to ball skills that they have, you put Ohtani and Betts on base like they had today. And to me, I would have rather had, a Tommy Edman and batting 3rd today, or a Kike batting 3rd today, because they would have been able to put the ball in play at least, as opposed to, Teoscar did put the ball in play, but he didn't do much with it because he's so cold. But I feel like moving those guys up is a good idea, just so that they can get the most opportunities to hit with runners on base.
Yes. All right, so we haven't done these in a while. I'm going to tell a miscellaneous story. Then I'm going to read the final questions and comments in the chat, and then I'll pass it off to Jake for our final thoughts. So I'll recap where I am. So I'm at the Cedars-Sinai Hospital. Wife just had a baby 2 days ago. So I'm walking out to dinner today to get some food. I pass through the parking lot, and then I see our car parked inside the garage. Since it's been sitting there for like 4 or 5 days now, it's collected some dirt and dust on the windows, and I see in capital letters, "Do better at parking." So this is where is that fair or foul? So I said what I said, or I said what I saw, but the car was literally in between both lines, at least 2 or 3 fingers space in between those lines, and some asshole still said park better or whatever. I didn't go over any line. I was within the lines a fair amount. Not even the wheel or the bumper was sticking out, and yet someone still technically vandalized the car by putting in the dirt, park better. Is that fair or foul?
It's foul. If you're within the lines, you're good no matter how you're positioned. If you are within the line and I think it's, obviously the main area of concern is the bumper or the wheel. If both of those are clear within the lines in the parking structure, I think you're good. I think someone just got a little bit too over the top with it. Also, to do that at a hospital, like really? Like, we don't know what people are going through. I mean, yes, you're having a child, which is huge, but what if you're, visiting a loved one who's on their deathbed and you got to get to the hospital quickly and you park there? Like, you don't know what we're going through, people. It's crazy.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the validation. So rapid fire right
You're
now.
welcome.
Beth Jansen, so depressing today, even though I didn't expect them to win today because the Mets were fired up and capitalized on it big time. I knew it was over after the first inning. Yeah, we talked about that. The momentum swing was just in the Mets' favor. We just really couldn't bounce back. So fair enough. The Flacco says, no panic, but I'm still questioning why Freddie is playing. I'm sorry, but he's hurt and is a liability at this time. Sky is not falling, but I don't get it. It's kind of what Jake was talking about. Question from IV. If the Dodgers lose game 6, what's the nervousness level you guys will have for a game 7?
Oh, shitting myself. I mean, it will be one of the worst nervous games of all time, which we had in game 5 of the NLDS. Like, hate those games. I mean, they're exciting, but hate them in terms of us getting to the World Series. We've been disappointed far too many times in the past couple seasons to come this far and be up 3-1. Blowing a 3-1 lead would just be catastrophic for everything.
This is crazy because it's an NLCS, but through the first 5 games, I've really yet to be nervous. I think this is the most calm I've felt in a playoff series in my entire lives. During the Padres, shit in my pants, peeing a lot, was really nervous, was on edge. And then from first pitch in game 1, I've kind of felt this comfort and calm, like I believe in these guys and they can do it. And so on a scale of 1 to 10 so far, I'd say like my nervousness level has been a 2 out of 10. But if they falter in game 6 and then there's a game 7, then the nervousness level will get very high because you just never know what will happen in a game 7. And we've been burned in the past by the Dodgers in some of these elimination games. So that's why I'm confident they're going to get the job done in game 6. And hopefully we don't have to talk about a game 7. But my goodness, they got to get it done. Oh, shit. Lost my connection for a second. John Bleed and Blue saying Teoscar Hernandez 0 for 18 with 9 strikeouts in this series. I think Teoscar Hernandez is now 0 for 22 or 0 for 23 with who knows how many strikeouts. He's just been abysmal. Moose 1032, go Dodgers. We need this win Sunday. And then I think that's it. I think that's it for the questions tonight. Jake, what are your final thoughts?
I'm okay. I think that after today's game, I think what stings the most, I think, is the fact that we lost today and we have a day off tomorrow. So we kind of have to sit with this for a couple days. And in order to really put yourself in a mindset to win a game 6, you're going to have to wipe that from your memory and flush it. But obviously it's much easier to do that if you have another game behind it, as opposed to having a day off after losing a game. So that's always tough. But I am confident in this Dodgers team. I believe that they are the better team. They just have to show it. This Mets team is no match for this Dodgers team. It's just up and down. The Dodgers just have the Mets beat. And in the wins that they've had so far have been dominant. And even in this quote unquote blowout game, the Dodgers still put up 6 runs. So that's a scary thought, I think, for this Mets team. They had to use their high leverage relievers in a 12-6 blowout, which is good because we got to see them on one more time. And the more times you see these relievers, the better chance you have of your offense coming through. And contrastly, the Dodgers relievers were not, their high leverage guys were not deployed as much in Citi Field because the Dodgers had blown these teams out and the Dodgers punted today. So those guys are not only rested, but they also have not seen, the Mets have not seen them as much as we've seen their pitchers.
It's a really good point. Good way to go out. My final thoughts are, I don't know why, but I had to come up with a rally album entering the postseason. So I chose The New Abnormal by the rock band The Strokes, who are from New York City. And up until today, when I listened to The New Abnormal before a first pitch, the Dodgers record was 6-3. And so that means if you really break it down, they were 6-0 on days when I listened to the album, and those 3 losses were the days I didn't listen to the album. So when the Dodgers were down 1-2 to the Padres, those were 2 days when I didn't listen to the album. So then I put on The New Abnormal. Dodgers won the 2 straight. Then I listened to The New Abnormal game 1, Dodgers won. Didn't listen to it game 2 because we were going to the hospital to start to get ready. They lost. Then I had to listen to The New Abnormal again. They won 1, but then I listened to it today and they lost. So I'm lost now. I don't know if I can go back to the album or the good luck charm is over. So I got to figure some things out, guys. Maybe drop below in the comments what I should listen to as our next rally album. But I don't have any final thoughts. Kind of a said it all tonight. Next time we do an episode, I think I'll have more energy, and hopefully we're talking about a World Series preview. So thank you guys for listening to the Incline Dodgers podcast today. If you're listening on the audio feed, hit that subscribe button, leave a review. And if you're watching on the YouTube feed after the live show has concluded, drop a comment below and share your Dodgers thoughts, how the Dodgers should map out Game 6. Thank you guys for watching. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we're peacing out.